7:55 nearly. We're going to be talking about swearing now. So I should say, before we get going, that if anybody slips up, this will happen. We're doing this because an employment judge has only just said this week that the F word is used so much now in the workplace in 2023 that it just doesn't have any shock value. And he says it's lost all its significance.
Does that mean we should all be allowed to use the swear words freely? So
is swearing not a big deal in the workplace if it still is on the telly or radio? Or is it actually still pretty offensive to colleagues, particularly the F word we're talking about here? Well, joining us now is the journalist Flora Gill, who says there's nothing wrong with turning the air blue. We all do it, so please mind your language. And employment legal expert Paul Britton. He thinks that swearing is unprofessional and can create a hostile environment. We'll come to you first. That's an interesting point, but we'll come to you first. Why do you think it's cool to have the F word banded around any office environment?
I'm not sure I'd say it's cool, but I think it does add a certain amount of colour, and I do think it's more relaxed nowadays to be able to say swear words. I think it can have a sense of camaraderie. I mean, who at the end of a really long day hasn't wanted to say, oh, that was effing exhausting, I really need an effing drink? I realise the irony of not being able to say it now.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything particularly
But that's interesting, because
wrong
there's a distinction between using it in that context as a kind of a commentary and using it as an offensive attack on somebody, like saying, you blank, or why don't you blank off?
Yeah.
There's a huge difference in context, isn't there?
100%. Context matters a lot in these kind of scenarios. There's 100 words that I would use to describe something. It would still be rude to say to my boss or say to you or say to a colleague, F you effing whatever.
I have to tell you, we're just being told apparently you can't actually say...
OK. Apologies.
That's all right. No, that's OK. But just to clear that up.
No, to be fair, we did ask you on the programme to talk about all of this language.
It's quite difficult. I've got to manoeuvre.
I'm just passing it on from the people upstairs.
Yeah, just from Ofcom. And especially as, ironically, of course, there will be many more children watching this morning because teachers are on strike, and so we've got more children in the audience. So let's turn to Paul Britton, who is the legal expert on this. Do you agree with Flora that it's actually pretty common, not that offensive, and the employment tribunal judge who says perfectly normal?
Well, I'll start with that, Susanna. It's the employment judge hasn't said it's OK to swear in the workplace. What the employment...
says it's lost its shock value.
It's lost its shock value. That's very different. There is protection. Flora gave a very good example of when you get home from work and you say, today has been a particularly bad day.
Yeah.
I think working from home has made people relax somewhat.
That's a good point.
When no one's around and listening. But in the workplace, using that sort of foul language can create a hostile and intimidating place to work. And if you link those swear words to protective characteristics under the law, age, sex, race, then there is protection in the Equalities Act, section 26, that will say that it is illegal and employers will be pulled over the hot coals if they fall foul of that.
So if my employer swore at me, would I have a claim in an employment tribunal?
It will depend on the context and what it leads to. You might say that if they've sworn at you and it's been particularly hostile and aggressive and you have felt demeaned, put down, bullied or harassed, then you may have a claim for unfair dismissal.
I think what we're all saying here and agreeing with is that it's about context, isn't it?
It is.
And about motivation. And I was telling a very funny story earlier on about the actress Anna Chancellor, who played Duckface in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And I asked her in a live interview on This Morning why her character was known as Duckface, and she told me why. Because she said that's what she was called, but with a different syllable at the front of the word when she was at university. We didn't get one complaint. She burst into tears when she realised what she'd said. She fell into my wife's arms and I'll never work again. And all we had were calls from people saying they thought it was very funny and telling her not to worry. So context is crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, just in general in the workplace, you want to have respect. Like, as you said, I'm not arguing, I don't think anyone is arguing that you should be able to use slurs in a workplace or be disrespectful to people. But that's very different to talking with colleagues and using an F word. I mean, I think it can be bonding. Studies have shown that it makes people look more honest when they use the word. It can give you a sense of camaraderie. Also, it's one of the only, like the Brits, we aren't the best at a lot of things, but I think we might be the best at swearing. Like,
well, Shakespeare would agree.
Yeah.
Shakespeare would agree with that.
As Scots, swearing, it's poetry.
Have you ever sworn? in the office when you shouldn't?
In the office, I have to admit, I have sworn on occasion.
At somebody?
No, but...
Because it's the difference, isn't it, in general conversation,
Yeah.
where nobody feels like you're attacking them.
That's right.
It makes a massive difference if you're being sworn in front of or being sworn at.
And the case that we're talking about that's just been in Reading Tribunal is a perfect example of no one was sworn at.
No.
A word was used in
Well, how did
context.
you use it? What was the context that you said?
In a similar sort of thing, frustration.
Frustration.
You know, like when you hurt yourself.
And did anyone complain or say, oh, don't say that, or hush it up?
No one complained. Lawyers are quite hardy people, so...
As are journalists.
Susanna, I don't know if they're in your outline, but the editor's just appeared on the floor, so I think we may have problems.
OK. Yeah, I haven't said anything. The halo should appear above my head as I defend us against any Ofcom investigation. We asked you on Twitter, should the F word be banned at work? And 4 out of 10 of you said yes. And 60% majority said no.
That's interesting.
And we almost got through that unscathed. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you both very much.
Good to see you.
Thank you for your time.